Hi, I'm Jen, and this is Roast the Post, the story behind the bullet points. The salary is impressive. The equity is generous. The office is stunning. The meals are covered. This week, we've got a company that's offering enough perks to make you think, wow, I could practically live here. But wait a minute. Maybe that's the point. Is this a company that cares so much about their employees that they're offering everything up on a silver platter? Or maybe, and to quote Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. Let's find out when we roast this post.
Love it.
I didn't know that guy's name. I just knew he said it's a trap, so I had to look up his name.
Oh yeah, it's like the grand meme. I mean, even if you don't like Star Wars, at some point you've probably come across the whole, it's a trap!
But is it? Let's find out.
I'm so excited.
I'm going to share the roasty profile as usual. The job title for this role is Strategy and Ops Leader. The report to title is unknown. The company size is 51 to 200 employees. The industry is financial services. So what do they do? They are an AI operating system for investment management built for the world's largest wealth firms and fintechs. This company works with firms managing more than $10 trillion in assets. So this company works with firms managing more than $10 trillion in client assets. The head office location is New York, USA. The job location is the same. The geographical operating area, I don't know. And the job type is full-time on site. And so a little bit of background as to why I chose this posting. And it's interesting because a lot of like the flavor du jour is AI, especially if you're watching here on Substack. And so I found this company that does like fintech AI type stuff, but I also created an agent using ChatGPT, and I gave it some criteria and asked it every week to find me like outrageous, quirky, cool job ads. And so this is like kind of like an Inception type situation. And then it found this job ad for me, and I liked the title because Paul, like, I think it aligns with your background and your expertise, like strategy, ops, and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what motivated me with this job ad.
Yeah, I'm dialed in for sure. Like 10, they're looking for funds or firms that have in the range of 10 trillion assets under management. Those are not small funds. So like this small company is looking to work with the biggest funds in the financial services industry. That's a very interesting dynamic that I'm quite curious about.
Absolutely. It's not a huge job ad, so I think we might be able to run through it all. But let's see. So a few different sections in here. The opener starts with build the future of investment management with us. And it goes on to say the infrastructure managing $300 trillion in assets was built in the 90s. Now all of it is up for grabs. The winner of the AI era of investment management will be a $100 billion plus company. We intend to be that company. To get there, we are assembling the most talent-dense startup in New York. We hire people who are 1, exceptional, 2, allergic to anything that's not exceptional, and 3, recruiters of other exceptional people. We also have no tolerance for brilliant jerks. We run lean by design. We work with a select group of the largest financial institutions in the world, go incredibly deep with each, and sit in the flow of trillions of dollars. We hire fewer people, ask each to own the outcome, and pay on impact, not tenure or experience. This company is not for everyone. The standards are unreasonably high, the pace is intense, and there is no playbook. In return, the best work of your career building a generational company. Let's stop there.
I have thoughts.
It's not a big intro, but there is so much happening in that intro. I have thoughts upon thoughts upon thoughts. And so why don't you go ahead, Paul, and share those?
Wow. So that reading between the lines, what I take away from that is we don't know what the we're doing. We don't know what the we need or want. We think that there's an opportunity to revolutionize something. Come and help us figure it out. That's what I read from that. I will give them points for being honest about like this is I forget how they phrased it, but it was like what we're asking for is kind of crazy. Like it's got big meritocracy vibes attached to it, which I don't hate. I don't hate meritocracies. I think that an element of meritocracy inside an organization is healthy and good as long as it's not the driving factor behind absolutely everything, and you don't turn it into the Hunger Games with meritocracy. Whether or not this is like the Hunger Games, I don't know. We will find out. But those are kind of my initial thoughts. Like they're trying to do something really big and they don't know how to. They want to figure it out. They're saying flat out that they want the absolute best. They're saying that their mission is to build what they call the most talent dense startup in New York City, which let's be honest about it. That's bravado. They're not going to build the most talent dense startup in New York City unless they've got a whackload of cash, and they're able to like take all of the other big tech startups that have been around for 30 years and have offices in New York City, and kind of like push them out. So like big hairy audacious goal, good for them. They're honest about it. They're saying they're saying something to the effect of, we hate brilliant, talented jerks. So they're trying to put a cultural signal in there that they want something in their organization that's a little bit more collaborative, which I kind of like. So full on, like I will give them top marks so far for their honesty. But warning flags, like red flags for me, it does not seem like they know what they want or what they need. So unless something in the rest of this job ad kind of convinces me otherwise, like my cluster detector is kind of going off. It's a bit like a smoke alarm, right?
So I will say that this is a bit of a spicy episode so far because I think like Paul and I are like, if you are familiar with certain terms that were shared in that intro, then you will know that this company has a hard on for Netflix. That's the only way I can describe it. They have a hard on for Netflix. Something about that culture resonates with them. And that's what they're trying to design their culture around. And I say that because brilliant jerks is a term originated by the CEO of Netflix. And it's this idea that you can be highly skilled at something, but if you're a asshole, then you don't belong here. And so that's where that comes from.
I think this episode is going to win the award for the most like swearsies per minute out of any that we've recorded so far. We're both pretty fired up about this.
So that's where brilliant jerks comes from. But there's another term that they're using in the intro, and it's called talent density, also popularized by Netflix. And so that is basically saying that a small team of exceptional performers, so we heard that adjective a lot, could outperform a much larger average one, which is not untrue, right? You got a small team and everyone's really good at what they do. They can probably outperform that larger average team. The thing is, though, is that it only works if the organization is like just as rigorous about leadership, about decision making, about performance expectations.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like to adopt those terms from the bigger companies, but sometimes they're not looking at like how it's being used. And so I don't know. I just think companies need to be careful about that. Like they talk about hiring people who are exceptional, allergic to anything that's not exceptional. If I were a candidate, I would ask how the company evaluates excellence. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And then they also talk about that they don't like brilliant jerks. Okay, but like, is that true? Right? Like culturally, It's about what your organization tolerates, not what they say on paper. So what does that look like about this company? This company is the AI operating system for investment management built for the world's largest wealth firms and fintechs. We work with firms managing more than $10 trillion in client assets and are backed by Index, something I don't know what it is, and Lightspeed. This company was founded by former quants from Citadel and Jane Street and is based in New York City. Pause there. What does that tell you? Does that give you a little bit more context?
Yeah, I mean, so if the company was indeed founded by hotshots from Citadel, then that's a thing. That's a thing. They will probably know what they're doing on the market side, on the financial side of it, but that does not tell me that they have a lot of experience or operating depth in technology. Which, if you're saying that you want to revolutionize something, and you're going to build the best team, you're going to have the best talent, you're going to be the best, blah 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 blah. Like, we're going to make it absolutely amazing, and you have the capability to do that in one part of your business, but you're absolutely adrift in another part of your business, that's a bit of a problem. And this job ad so far, it does read like they don't necessarily have the technical expertise, the bench, to be able to kind of make it so on that side of it. And add to that the compounding kind of fact, layering in that we're talking about AI. We're talking about a technology that is very nascent in a lot of ways. Like, chatbots have been around forever. They've been popularized since about 2022. That's only 4 years. And these people are not going to be using a large language model in their technology. I hope, if they're building this technology that's going to revolutionize the financial markets, and it's all based on an LLM or even something around like RAG, and that's just it. Everybody take your money out of your portfolio right now and put it under your mattress, because if these guys are successful, they'll f everything, and your retirement savings will go away. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And these guys are in New York, so they'll have access to connections that could actually help them be successful. We'll see. I'm a little bit worried about this job ad.
Yeah, one of the things that I noted with this was that, like, there's a lot of boasting, and that's, they're building credibility and they're acting very confident. A lot of companies, like, they're selling the job for you, and a lot of companies forget to do that. They forget to explain what makes this company different. Why us, right? Like, it's a two-way transaction. They want to attract you, and you want to attract them. But a lot of companies really sell themselves short. So I do appreciate that they're doing that. But I think, like, you kind of touched on this. We know who backs them. We know who founded them, but we don't really know anything about what their AI operating system is actually doing. So I find that really interesting.
I honestly don't think they do either. Like,
Yeah.
what we've seen from the job ad so far says we have this idea, come work for us and with us and make it a reality. I don't think that I don't think that they know how this is going to work yet. Which, if we think back to where they said we want to be intentional in hiring and we want to hire fewer people, the underbelly of that is we want to mitigate risk from overhiring. So we're going to keep it small. Maybe their approach is to say, all right, we're going to build an MVP, a minimum viable product, with a small team. We're going to validate that this actually will work, and we'll go from there. If that's their strategy underneath the hood and they're not talking about it yet, okay, I feel a little bit better. But it sounds like they don't know what they what they want to do yet, and that's concerning.
Well, it's startup vibes. It's the whole, we're building the plane while flying it. Like, this is it. That's where that saying comes from. So it will be quite the ride. The next section goes into the actual role. So the role. We're looking for, here's the word again, for an exceptional individual to help build and scale our GTM engine. And in this case, go to market, right? Work on the most important GTM strategy and operational projects in the company and drive our next phase of growth. We're in a hypergrowth and need a versatile, gritty, high slope individual who can help us maintain our 10x plus growth trajectory while building the GTM and ops engine into a machine that scales and executes with high velocity. While this role has a very broad scope, we'll tailor the scope to your superpowers so that you can have the highest impact and career acceleration. And I'm going to stop here. Usually we don't stop like that with such little shared. But
Yeah.
yes, exactly. To quote the
Holy
chat, what in the AI? What in the AI? I will say that there were a couple things I actually liked. Like, if I'm being honest, this is kind of like the anti-me job ad, but there were a couple things that I liked. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that small section. That's just the role.
I'm super confused. So the story that was the picture that was kind of being painted before is we're going to be intentional in hiring. We don't really quite know what we are doing or how we're going to execute on it yet. So we're going to assemble a team of superheroes. Like, we're going to bring in superheroes to help us kind of solve the problem. That's what I was reading from this up until now. But then they turn around and they say we're in hypergrowth mode. And we need someone who is exceptional to come and basically, leverage hypergrowth mode to hyper growth mode. I wonder what they mean when they say hypergrowth in this context, because when I think about growth modes and hypergrowth modes in startups, we're talking about you found product market fit. You've identified your go-to-market strategy. You have proven what works. And now you're pouring that venture capital money into the machine and you're hiring a ton of people. You're scaling your resourcing, like you're putting infrastructure and scaffolding in place so that you can command the market and you can be the dominant player in this. Like, that's the usual curve of all of this. But now they're saying we're in hypergrowth mode and we don't know what the we're doing yet. What's up with that? I don't get that. That's very, very confusing to me. I don't know what to make of this. A red flag that really comes up for me as well, and you mentioned it a little while ago, they say exceptional a lot, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. It's a signal for what they want. Like, this is starting to form a very clear kind of cultural picture of what they're after for me. And it seems to be very kind of fueled by, New York VC finance world, and high growth tech startup world kind of mixed together. And culturally, like historically, those two things are both very problematic. So like jamming them together is more problematic, I would say. The cultural signaling seems to be there. But when they say exceptional, what do they mean by exceptional? What's the guideline for that? Like, exceptional is very subjective at the best of times. So as a candidate, I'd be looking at this and saying, okay, well, you've said the word exceptional about 20 times already. What does that actually mean to you? Because I have an idea of what I think it means to you in my mind. But if there's a mismatch there, it's going to cost me money. Because they've said that pay is tied to outcome, not to tenure, not to experience, not to anything else. So that kind of would be setting off alarm bells for me as a candidate.
Absolutely. And do you think, based on what we've heard so far, that they actually have that like scoped out and like there's a rubric and they No, absolutely not. This is like the trifecta. Like, for anyone who is ever like interested in true crime, there's a trifecta of like what makes a serial killer. And it's like mommy issues, head injury, wetting your bed, right? That's the trifecta of like how you create a serial killer, or what creates a serial killer. In this job, we've got a trifecta of finance, startup, AI. It's a trifecta of something. I don't want to know what it is, but it's certainly terrifying. And they probably all pee the bed too. So my thing, I'd said that there was something I liked about it. And this is going to sound well, actually, first, before I go into that, I have a question. Does anyone know what high slope means? They want a high slope individual. I don't know what that is. I don't think I've ever heard that term before.
I've never heard that term before.
I'm wondering if maybe Kathy knows what that is or anyone else, like a high slope individual. I could have Googled it. I think you're Googling it right now.
Yeah.
But I just think that that's a first for us. What does it say?
It says, a high slope individual is slang for someone who can basically learn really, really quick and be like really effective, really, really fast and be amazing.
Exceptional.
Yeah.
It's just enough.
Exceptional on the time horizon of 7.5 minutes after you've, had 3 minutes pouring yourself a cup of coffee.
This is interesting because Olamide says you've heard it used in consulting and chief of staff roles. When I read this job description the first time, some of it read to me as chief of staff. So it's interesting that you picked up on that because that's kind of how it was starting to read for me too. So very, very perceptive. So going back to the one thing that I thought was interesting was that they acknowledge that it's a broad scope. Like we're kind of going to say it, but they're acknowledging it. And I appreciate that because a lot of companies don't actually take that time. Points for honesty. There's some honesty here. They also say that they'll tailor the scope to your superpowers. Hate superpowers, but they're saying that they're doing it so that you can have the highest impact and career acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how true that is, but I appreciate that that's kind of a thing that they are trying to do. Like, good luck to them. I hope that they can do that. But what does that mean? And what if those superpowers that they tailored your role to no longer serve the organization down the road? Yeah. Then what? They tailor this to you.
That's the inherent danger of doing stuff like that, of tailoring roles very, very, very heavily to individuals. Like I'm absolutely supportive of tailoring roles to individuals to a certain extent, to the extent that you can do so without impacting the rest of the organization negatively. Yeah, absolutely. And examples of role tailoring, job tailoring include things like flex time. They include things like personal development. They include things like working hours. They include things like assistive devices in the workplace. They include things like reporting structures and relationships and coaching and mentoring. All of those things, fantastic for tailoring the role to an individual. But if you're saying we're going to 100% make this a bespoke role, that's going to be a challenge in a hypergrowth environment. Because hypergrowth environments, if they're actually using the word properly, a hypergrowth environment is one where you are 10xing your revenue at least year over year. And traditionally, that means that you have to staff up. You seriously staff up. Like, you don't just hire 1 or 2 people in a quarter. You hire 100 people a month. And you spend that money.
But remember, they say we run lean by design, and then they talk
100%.
about talent density. So yes, and is it going to be effective? Yeah.
And that's what I find so confusing and frustrating about this so far. Like there are mixed signals in this. There are huge mixed signals that drive me a little bit nuts. Anyway,
there are aspirations that they're speaking of, but then there's reality, and those things really do bump against each other, and thus is like the startup life. So next we go into what you'll do. Run point on the most important GTM, operational and strategy projects at the company. Turn the company into a well-oiled machine that can maintain 10x plus growth while scaling smoothly and effectively. That's what you will be doing in this role. Build a world-class strategy and ops function and help stand up, scale other functions as needed. Lean into your superpowers to maximize impact and career acceleration. And we'll stop there.
So they're hiring a chief operating officer?
Or yeah.
That last section to me read like COO. But that's not what they've titled the job. And I would imagine that's not what they're looking for on the pay scale. I would imagine this is all very jumbled, the things that they're putting together that they want and need. The job title of this role is biz ops and strategy lead, right? But absolutely everything that they just said to me says chief operating officer or chief of staff as well. Could be it in
Sure.
some kind of, or in some organizations. So those things are at odds. And what's not clear yet is what authority this person has, what authority to make decisions and to instruct other people on strategic priorities and executional priorities this role will actually have. Because that is historically one thing that strategy leads, if there isn't a good organizational design around it, one thing historically that strategy leads run into is they come up with like very well reasoned strategy, very well thought out stuff to do, but then they run into other people's priorities not being theirs. So they can't actually execute on their strategy.
This is it.
Without authority around this role, I feel like this could probably fall into that gap too.
So you named something really interesting here, because one of the terms that they use, and keep in mind, like in the what you'll do, there are only 4 bullet points, but each of them is like essentially everything. And so one of those points is turn the company into a well-oiled machine.
Chief of staff and chief operating officer.
If right, and if everybody is like a cog in the machine, how are you going to, you just said it, like what kind of authority do you have? So if I'm a candidate, I'm looking at this and I would be asking what authority, what resources, what leadership support, am I the leader? Like what at the end of the day, really what authority comes with this role? They also talk a lot about building and scaling. They're really focused on outcomes. You'll notice in most job postings, they list responsibilities and it's task based. This is outcomes based. And I will say that I prefer seeing an outcomes based job ad than I do a task based job ad. That's just me personally. I want to understand. That's how you tie value back to your role too, right? That's how you keep engaged, because you understand what are the outcomes and you can kind of figure things out from there. But we don't have a reporting structure listed in this job ad either. So who knows? Next section, as we near the end of the job ad. You're a good fit if you have 5 to 8 years of experience at some combination of B2B, that's business to business startups, investment banking, consulting, or investing, PE, private equity, hedge fund, VC, venture capital. Preference for at least some GTM or operations experience at a startup. Incredible work ethic, throughput, ability to learn, obsession over the details, ownership mentality, and bias for action. High integrity. Better, I'm just going to keep going, even better if you have a passion to become a master at all things operations and or GTM in B2B startups, motivation to find a career-defining opportunity and experience significant personal career growth. So I'm going to stop there. Those are the qualifications, if you will. Paul is having a very, very big reaction to this.
I feel like my zone is fully flooded, and that's the point of this job ad, to flood the zone so thoroughly and so completely that the people who apply just apply because they like forget what they've read and they're like, okay, sure, give me the money, let's make it work. There's nothing super strategic about this role, like saying flat out, we want you to master the operational complexity of the business and the well-oiled machine and all of that stuff. Nothing about this is about strategy. Like, sure, you can have that rare person who is capable of functioning cognitively on both a strategic plane and an execution plane. Never at the same time. Like, it's just, the human brain does not work like that. You cannot be thinking big picture strategy and be thinking like these 10 things in this workflow simultaneously. Our brains are not wired that way. We cannot do it. You do have people who can rapidly switch between those two things. I would argue that attention residue absolutely impairs their performance on
Mm.
either side, but those people, they do kind of exist. This job's bullshit. This is such bullshit.
I'm glad you like it so much.
I,
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because they do mention some experience. They are also very much talking about like traits. We've seen this before in job ads. They're talking just as much about like traits and like behaviors than they are about experience, although the experience is very interesting. And then I also wonder, like, I work in venture capital, so I feel like I can say this, but one of the things that they list is if you're a good fit, if you have high integrity. Can you work in PE and like venture and those things, and do those things make sense together? I don't know. I don't know. How does that measure?
in some industries, the definition of the word integrity is subjective. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that that was interesting. And anyway, yeah. So we also talked about like obsession over the details. That's good. Like, okay, I get why not that's good. Sorry. I get why you were saying that, but we've talked about that dangerous slope, high slope, if you will, whatever that
Yeah.
term was that they used, with having someone like having obsessed in those descriptions, because what does that mean? Like, is this person going to be like what's going to be more important to them, and how are they going to portray that trait and being obsessed about things at work? How does that show up? I don't like that. I think that that's really dangerous to make that part of like something that you're looking for, because it can show up in some really terrible ways in an organization. It's interesting because they don't also talk about like being fluid and being agile and being open and like learning and things like that. Like it's really, really like a set type of personality, a specific type of personality that they're looking for. So we shall see how that suits them, and how that works in the organization.
Yeah.
Next is compensation and benefits. I'm not going to show the compensation yet, but that's a section in the job ad. So there's a base salary listed, and then it goes on to say equity, aggressive initial grant plus annual performance-based bonuses. Another benefit is our beautiful West Village office with a terrace, 5 days a week in office. They also offer, I want everyone to brace themselves for this. They also offer free lunch and dinner. They offer $150 monthly gym stipend, health, dental, and vision coverage, 100% company reimbursement. And that's the job ad.
So in the compensation part, initial equity grant, yeah, you would expect that for something like this for sure. That also kind of signals to me that the salary is going to be a little bit challenging, which startups, that the salary is always going to be a little bit challenging. I found it interesting that they said annual equity grants. And my guess is that we're not actually talking about like equity, like owned equity. We're probably talking about options. So if there's a liquidity event in the future, this company goes public or is acquired by somebody else, then at that point in time, the employees that have options can convert them to equity, and there's a flash transaction structure that's usually used where it's like, okay, the option is triggered. Legally, you need to buy the equity, but we're going to structure it in such a way that whatever the equity costs to buy and whatever the sale price is, you'll get the difference. So you won't actually have to front any cash for this up front. It'll just be like, hey, your share is valued at $1. We sold for $5, so you get $4. We pay the $1. All good. The annual grants based on performance, that's interesting. That's not super, super, super common at very early stage companies like this. Typically, you see stuff like that with employee stock plans, where it's an established company that's already publicly traded, and you get stock grants based on performance and other factors. That's pretty common, but it's uncommon for companies of this size. So I kind of give them points for that, points in their favor. But again, like we've talked about options on the show before, they're meaningless unless there is actually an acquisition or a liquidity event or something. Like you can very easily get into a situation where your options are meaningless, or if you leave the company before those options become a real thing for you, then you can get into a legal fight and you're going to lose. It's just how it is. So they're not super meaningful unless you really believe in this and unless there's a pathway to get there. 5 days a week in office, that's weird for AI. That's weird for technology. But if this is finance and if a part of developing this software platform is at least relational based on Wall Street, kind of get it. Kind of get it. But that's going to limit the pool of available exceptional people that they want. They're going to make a bet here that the only exceptional people in the universe that they want to hire are in basically Manhattan,
Yeah.
or Brooklyn or whatever. You can take the L train in if you want, or Queens, or Flatbush if you want to commute a little bit longer. But they're saying like the only exceptional people that we're hiring are in New York. Do you want exceptional people, or do you want people who are going to be in your friggin' office 5 days a week? Well, you've chosen what you want. It's not the best decision, I don't think.
This is it. Yep. Yeah.
Free lunch and dinner, that's a signal. You're going to be in the office till 10 p.m. is what that says.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are cots in the back for people who sleep overnight, especially developers. Health and vision at 100% coverage. It was health, right? Or was it dental?
What did I say? Health, dental, and vision. 100% company reimbursement.
Okay. That's pretty good. That's uncommonly good for early stage companies, especially in the US. That's uncommonly good because that will be very expensive. So I have nothing negative to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scene. I'm finished.
And scene. So my thoughts are pretty much the same as yours. It's this is the second job ad that we have seen lately where they talk about how sick their office is. Like it's a beautiful view. Like they're selling you on that, right? Like it's sure, I'm sure it's a lovely office and it's a great view, but like so is the view outside my home office window. So that to me, that's not a selling point. And you said it, free lunch and dinner. So they're telling you it is a trap. It's like I said at the intro. It's funny because Amanda, who's in our studio audience, was not here for my intro, but I literally said it's a trap. That was like it's telling you everything you need to know. The story behind the bullet points. That's why we do this show. They're expecting you to be there all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if there is, if there are sleep pods back there, whatever it is that they need to do. We've mentioned this before in jobs like this. Maybe like there's a little bowl of cocaine on everyone's table, cubicle, right? Like they're going to do everything they can to keep you there. And that is why it's 5 days a week. It's not because they have a beautiful office. It's because they want eyes on you and they want to see that you're working all the time and you have a gym stipend. Well, God forbid you actually go to the gym because they will know that you've gone to the gym. They're going to be watching. So it's all what we thought that it was. Compensation. I want to talk about that because they do list the salary, which, as we know with this show, it is a little bit rare to see that these days. I would love to know your thoughts, Paul, and I would love to know people listening and watching what your thoughts are as well. So as a refresher, the job title is strategy and ops leader. It's in financial services. They're an AI operating system for investment management and located in New York. This is permanent, full-time, on site. What do you think the salary is for this role?
There are two kind of answers. There's what I think it should be valued at and what I think they're going to value it at. I think that this should be valued at, and this is not titled as a leadership role or an executive role. This is at the very best an individual contributor, probably like the director kind of seniority level role. So I think this should be somewhere between 120 and 140 USD per year. Um, which is it's quite the guess given that the job responsibilities, the things that you're responsible for, are all over the friggin' map. But based on what I think they're asking for, I think this should be 120 to 140. Given the focus on equity, both initial and annual grants, I think it's going to be lower than that. I think what they're actually going to offer is between 75 and 100 USD per year.
We've got a guess in the studio audience as well. Neither are right. Let me tell you what the salary band is for this role. US dollars, 160 to 230 is the base
Wow.
salary. Oh, see, yeah, you were close there. So 160 to 230 USD. And so, to me, I mean, thoughts on that, but it is, higher top market salary.
Yep.
What I'm interested in understanding is, when do they decide it's 160 and when do they decide it's 230?
That's true. It's very true.
What are the factors? Because they do talk about, they don't care as much about experience. They don't care as much about, they said something else about that. They're really more talking about like a person who wants to do this work. And so how are you determining then, if experience isn't that important to you, how are you then deciding who gets 230 and who gets 160?
It's a huge range.
What does that look like? It's a huge range.
It's a huge range. This the 160 to 230, like the base salary being as high as it is, as I think about it now, that's solely a function of this being in office in New York City. Salaries in New York City are extremely high, and they've made the decision for whatever reason to only cast their net in that pond. So they're saying, we want the best talent in New York City, nowhere else, outside of that doesn't matter to us. So I think that's why we're getting that 160 to 230 range, which for me is like, did you guys forget about capitalism? Don't you realize that you could hire somebody remote to do this job at probably like half the salary, and you could probably find somebody comparable if you cast a wider net? You are doubling your salary cost for this role, probably. Well, maybe not doubling, but you're significantly increasing your salary cost for this role because you want all of the worker bees in your beautiful like West Village office. That's not good capitalism. Like, hand in your capitalism card. You're done. You're just wacko.
Be a better capitalist. God. It's really interesting to me. And remember, we'd said earlier that they mention that they acknowledge that this role has a very broad scope. And then they say they'll tailor the scope to your superpowers so that you can have the highest impact and career acceleration. What if you bring someone in at 230? Because tailoring it is going to happen after they are hired. And then the scope isn't worth 230. Like, it's such a weird way to approach it. And I agree. Like, I think that if you were to hire someone remote for this organization, you could probably pay a little bit less. It also makes me wonder if this is the band for this role. They're not an executive, like you said, they're not a director. What the hell are they paying the founders in this company? And like the executive team? Like, imagine what these salaries are looking like. It's wild.
Yeah, the definitely. I'm very curious about who the investors are in this, because being connected to Citadel, like if one of the founders is formerly leadership at some capacity at Citadel, they know the big money people. So I would guess that there's just like a big gob of money sitting on the balance sheet of this organization, like uncommonly big for a startup because of those connections to the finance industry. And they're just kind of spraying it around. And if the founders are former, big companies or whatever, and they've already made a ton of money from their prior work or their prior exits, maybe they're not drawing salary. Because there is a certain type of person, a certain type of like founder with wealth that doesn't actually need money in the terms of a salary. Maybe they're not.
Interesting. I will also tell you, because I know the company, and so I did a little bit of digging. And in May, they successfully raised $78 million in a Series C funding round.
Oh, wow.
Prior to
78
that,
in a C? That's low.
yeah.
That's a
Well,
very small Series C.
prior to that, like this is 10 months after they raised $36 million in a Series B. So it's interesting.
That's also not big for New York finance. Those are very small rounds.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Okay, so that's the job. That's the job ad. The next part of what we're going to do is Paul, who did not see the job ad ahead of time, he's going to take a moment. He's going to read through it from start to finish. Then he's going to rejoin us, and we're going to do the rating of the job ad. And so we rate out of 10 for the job ad itself, how it's written, how it sounds, what they thought about. And then we do another rating for the job design. And so that's more like, is it sustainable? Does it make sense? Career pathing and all that kind of stuff. Job ad itself, out of 10, how is it written? What do you kind of like about it? What worked about it? What didn't in just the job ad itself? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it kind of pains me a little bit to say this because of how much I dislike about what's going on here, but I would give the job ad a 6. In my heart, I want to give it a negative 10 billion, but I'm going to give it a 6. Things that are going well for it that drive that 6. It's well structured. It's well written. They're very clear about their grand mission. They're clear about why they're doing this. They're saying, hey, we think that the winner in AI investment services or in infrastructure to support investment services that is powered by AI, blah, 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 is the winner of that is going to be $100 billion company. We want to be that company. They're really clear about that. That's positive for like the job ad itself. It's honest as well. They say flat out, they say this is not for everyone. These expectations are unreasonable. I concur. They're nuts, but you're honest about it. So you get some points there because there are some people who would gravitate to this. There are people out there who would look at something absolutely unreasonable and say, yes, that's for me because I want to do the impossible. I want to challenge myself. And if on the odd kind of chance that it actually works out, I'm going to make some bank. And I like that too. So they're honest about it. Things that aren't so great about this, there are tenuous arguments in here. So they're saying that they already have clients that have 10 trillion in assets under management. That's like the total value of their client base is already managing 10 trillion in AUM. Okay, great. That's a big number. The market capitalization of the NASDAQ and the NYSE in the US is about 75 trillion. So they're saying our clients already have about 1/7 the value of the 2 largest publicly traded exchanges in the US and in the world. Let's be honest about it. The US equities markets represent roughly 49% of the value of global equities markets. So what these guys are saying is that they've already got the clients that have massively huge footprints. So my first question is like, okay, and you think that there's that much more of an opportunity that you are pursuing this full bore in the same kind of aggressive way. That sets off a bit of a bell for me. I wonder how much of that is grounded in reality. I don't think that there's a lot that's grounded in reality with those numbers, those statements. So like big alarm bell for me. Like I dock the marks for that because they're just making up BS in their job ad. It's persuasive BS. It's BS though. Job design, the role design. I am not favorable about this whatsoever. It's a zero. It's a straight up zero. I want to
Whoa.
rate it a -10, but I only like dealing in, natural numbers or real numbers or whatever that, like, we don't like negatives is on the show. So it's a 0 to 10. This is absolutely a 0 out of 10 role design for me because of a few different things. Number one, they don't know what the role design is. That's kind of the first problem. And they pretty much say as such. Number two, they take a stab at it, but taking a stab at it, they combine things in a way that doesn't make sense. They're writing a job ad for, well, we want an operational leader. We want a person who will execute. We want a person who will come up with the grand strategy that will take us to that $100 billion corporate valuation so that we can go make some money in an IPO or like the liquidity event. That's what they're saying. They're saying that they want all of these different things in one person. They're not fully and accurately and fairly describing any of the different areas that they want. They're just throwing some stuff into the pond. And I think that probably what they're saying with that, will tailor the job to you, is that they don't know what they want. They don't know what they need. They're going to look for somebody that they can go grab a beer with, and then they'll make the roll up after the fact on that. That's a terrible way to design a role for an organization that's actually going to be successful and sustainable. But
Yeah.
maybe this isn't meant to be a sustainable company that's going to be around forever. Maybe this is a big pump and dump scheme. Two of the investors that are involved in this, and I'm not going to say which ones, have gotten themselves in major, major hot water. One of them
Oh,
was...
did you do some research?
I did, because one of the names sounded really familiar. One of the ones was slapped around by securities regulators in India really hard last year for market manipulation. Not going to say which one it is. Y'all can Google that yourself. But that also kind of speaks to the culture that's going to be present in this organization.
Yeah.
Because when you have active investors behind a company, their values and their priorities filter down into the organization. So this is not going to be a very ethical place to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got questions. They're also kind of like filtering a little bit when they say, we don't want brilliant jerks. That's going to limit the amount of people who apply for this job to about 3, because who works in New York finance that isn't a brilliant jerk at this level that will work for this amount of pay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe they just want the jerks. I don't know.
I got nothing good to say about the role design, so 0.
Yeah, no, that's fair. For the job ad itself, I'm about like a 6 or a 7, which might sound surprising, but the thing is, like, they know what they're looking for, and they've written the job role for that. And so I think in the earlier days, I would have been like, this is a 0. But the thing is, they do know what they're looking for, and they have written the job for that individual. And so it is going to like capture the attention of certain people who they are looking for. We talk about gender coded language, and like this is a really good example of that. When we read this job description, I think everybody watching or listening can picture someone in their head. That's gender coded job descriptions, and they know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for. And so I don't expect anything less from a role, from a company like this. So to me, they knew what they were looking for, and that's who they were speaking to. They're speaking to their ideal candidates. And so sure, okay, fine. 7 out of 10. For the job design, the role design, same. Like, it's not sustainable. This isn't a job. This is a lifestyle. Like, it truly is. This is going to be someone's life, not sustainable. But like, I'm also not sorry for the person who goes into it, because they know what they're getting themselves into. Like, they absolutely know what they're getting themselves into. And so, to me, it's like a 0 for that, because it's not my thing. If it's your thing, then sure, go for it. But otherwise, yeah. And then we did have a vote. I think this is for this one. I think it was a 4 for both.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not a winner here. Yeah, that was it. That was another roast the post. I think we can consider this one roasted and toasted.
This is roasted with the roastiest of roasting instruments I've ever roasted with. My God, make it stop.
Make it stop. This is the world we live in now.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Roast the Post. If this episode made you feel feisty, leave a rating or review wherever you watched or listened. It turns the algorithm into our own personal butler and helps new listeners find the show. We record new episodes every week in our live studio audience. Check the link in the show notes if you want to join us.